Okay.
All right, so I'd like to talk about Sophos against ransomware.
Hmm.
I think we brought it one of our classes a few classes back, and I decided to give it a try and see how it works. I like to show a couple of recent researches. Um, I'm not sure if you guys see my screen, but the current research is saying that 44% of business was infected, 60% of the companies had a good backup, 59 paid ransomware, and the average of SUM is 13300 annual, and this was reported by Sophos. Um, and The malicious attackers are not showing they're slowing down in actually 2019. There's global damage cost. It started in 2015, 17. They reach out 5 billion. In 2018, they reach between 5 and 10 billion. 2019, 15. And the prediction is to reach out to 20 billion by 2021. So I decide to try it myself. So for the whole students, if you guys want to try free Sophos antivirus, you can go to City College website by searching and download Sophos.
Hmm.
So here installed, it's pretty cool software. Basically, they allow to manage or set up cloud-based. So basically, create an account, you log into your account, and you can set up your functionality the way you like it. So I did found some websites that are malicious, and I did run it against Sophos, and as you see, successful blocked all of them. Different type of content, different type of blockage, like you see HTML, Gen, and then you see Pony here, other content malicious. Um, And then I decided to run some executable files, which I went ahead in the console and I turned the real-time protection off to not detect the signature, and I left on just the ransomware functionality. Um, and here's my 3 executable files that I run against the Sophos.
Mm.
And what I noticed is I had some pictures in the folder and I had some documents that I created. So what I noticed was when I run all 3 of them, Scrab was one of them that was detected by Sophos, was deleted itself before the attack and didn't do any damages to any files. Then I run Gendermere that was detected also by Sophos. Um, File has been terminated, so it terminated the process to prevent the execution of malicious code. Then I run the Rapid. So Rapid partially blocked the process, the execution file, and it did encrypt. It tried to encrypt the files, but it didn't. So it created a file that says, hello, all your files being encrypted. And if you want to restore the files, write on email to us. However, as you see in the picture, none of the picture was affected. All the work still impacted. So that was good. And all my data was not affected. However, the was an encryption. One of the file was encrypted. Was showing. I don't know which file is that. I couldn't determine. It was something that this malicious file created additional, but it doesn't seem to be from the data that I had. So it's additional to the data that I had. And that's all I had.
Wow. Well, thank you. I'm glad to see that. I've
Yep.
always wondered what that Sophos stuff does.
Yeah, it seems to be improved. It's a pretty cool tool. It's got um, like I said, it's cloud-based and it's easy to manage and control that application. It's well built. I know a while back didn't have a good reputation, but it's still it seems that they got improved a lot. So it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You guys should try it.
All right, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's go on to you, Carrie. Maybe you got to come up here so we can hear you on the mic. All right. I'm going to unplug those speakers and move out of the way.
Okay. Let's see. So, there we go. Where do you want to start the clock?
Yeah,
Start it?
go ahead.
Okay. So compliance for cloud companies, nothing amazing. There's a lot of standards out there. Some of them you might have heard of. Service organization controls. There's level 1, 2, and 3. Each of those are very different aspects. There's also ISO 27001, which is a comparable standard. You've probably heard of Cloud Security Alliance. Some of the companies would follow those and kind of fill out the questionnaire. If you're a publicly traded company, Sarbanes-Oxley Act is actually a portion of that. It relates to IT. National Institute of Standards and Technology, that's by the federal government in the US who set up standards for that as well. And there's many, many more. So in the realm of compliance standards, there's a lot of standards. It's just depends on your company, on what they choose. So I didn't put HIPAA or PCI because those are very specific to like the medical healthcare industry for HIPAA. But if your company is not storing like medical records, then they wouldn't be HIPAA compliant. Many companies would just say, don't store your medical records in our database so that we will not have to adhere to HIPAA, right? Same thing with PCI. PCI is like payment card systems. So many companies will kind of offset that and transfer their responsibility to other companies like Stripe, Chargeify, Square. I think Square is still around. So those companies will process payments for your customers. So in compliance, the realm of compliance, we can transfer our responsibilities to other companies. And you'll see that a lot of times. Just be aware of that because that means you're transferring your risk, right? And you know, we have questions about that as well. So I was told that compliance has strong, sufficient authority. This is a myth. Compliance has really no authority. It's really the person behind it that tells you you have to be compliant. But really, do you really have to be compliant? I find that it's kind of a give and take. So first of all, understanding what is the purpose of compliance. So every company follows compliance for different reasons. So some of them is to set up best practices within their company. So you'll see a startup who's kind of moving beyond just bootstrapping and doing things like on their own to following best practices, just having documentation, records, processes that are very well defined. Compliance helps ensures the organization follows laws, regulations, and policies. You'll see a lot of companies really squirming beginning of January 2020 when the California Consumer Privacy Act comes, because before with the European GDPR, they're not that concerned about it. But since a lot of tech companies and a lot of business are happening in the United States and California has this new compliance standard, you'll see companies start panicking and trying to understand what that compliance policy means. So compliance in a way is telling you, you know, you have to design your systems a certain way. You have to follow certain types of regulations around the data and, you know, deletions and stuff like that. So that's what it sets up for. It also helps your business meet objectives. It offers guidelines to implement controls. It's a very proactive approach to compliance and risk instead of being reactionary, which is a majority of security, is reactionary. So these are a lot of challenges that you'll have to overcome if you want to go into the realm of compliance, governance, and risk. You have to, you know, identify who are the people who are going to own these responsibilities. What are their roles within compliance? How do you verify and analyze all this data and information? It's a lot of project management skills, so you'll find that you don't have to be technical, but you do have to have a good sense of timing, organization, and be able to communicate. So overall, compliance is know as a service. Just know that.
Thank you.
That's it. It's fun.
That's fine. 4 minutes is what it should be. People are getting the time pretty well.
All right. I'll go off to the side.
Just
so you
share
can
the
kind of-
screen,
Absolutely.
and then
Is that me?
you should be able to share from your desktop.
Oh, my entire screen. Share.
Yeah, there.
There we go. All right, so we're going to look at Facebook's bad chapter,
Okay.
which I think many of you know. It's basically how they socially engineered and influenced our election. So let's look at Russia, who in this case is the advanced persistent threat. They, of course, are historically masters of propaganda. They had it was called the Agitprop, and it was their department of propaganda and agitation. They right now are essentially in a zero-sum game with us, where any kind of loss is a gain for them. Their goal, too, for this election was really to prevent Hillary from winning. So you saw them really have a lot of kind of support go to Bernie and go to Trump, who were both kind of the anti-establishment candidates, which was kind of, it plays into their whole thing. Because really one of the big bases of Russian kind of propaganda is to really get you to mistrust your own system. So I kind of saw it as the Russians exploited two vulnerabilities. The first one is just kind of our current political system. Kind of before the election, you saw kind of, news sources, kind of alt-right and alternative news, it was called at the time, be cited more. I saw it kind of in personal political discussions, and I saw it more so people, certain political figures were now kind of getting, more of a stage. And they, in turn, started to undermine the established kind of media. Also, too, at this time, 60% of Americans got some form of news from social media, and people weren't as skeptical back then. So it was just a very polarized climate. People were kind of down, a lot of people were skeptical. And then, so the Russians, I'm sure they saw this, they actually sent agents to kind of study how our political system worked, and they did a very good job. Second one was Facebook and kind of how they operate, right? I mean, Facebook, of course, is a company that has a duty to its shareholders to make money. Right? That's what it does. And part of the way it does that is to get you to be on Facebook, to sell you ads, and you want to see what you want to see. So their algorithms kind of would, they created this echo chamber. So you would kind of, only see one kind of viewpoint. They didn't really vet links too well. The Russians actually, everyone knows how Facebook works. So they were creating fake profiles, fake groups, and actually organizing events in the United States in certain towns. And one example that blew my mind was they had I think it was a Trump rally and a Bernie rally, or maybe it was a Hillary rally and a Trump rally, same place, same time. They really kind of wanted to spark this unrest. And it was effective. According to the New York Times, Russian influence, this wasn't Americans, this just cited as users, about 126 users. So the threat was, of course, that they would use this platform, right? This basically the social media platform, the first among equals, to disseminate fake news and kind of polarize our political climate and really exacerbate it to undermine Hillary Clinton and kind of the established news. And they did an outstanding job at that, as we've seen. And so this is how they did it, right? Their actual exploitation was to create fake profiles, fake groups, kind of get in the mind, get into, kind of certain extreme ideas and, policies onto the board, as well as kind of undermining the establishment in kind of more moderate points. as you can't trust it. It's, you know, it's corrupt. It's fake news. And you see now, I was listening to NPR today. This isn't about Russia, but you see this tactic now with a certain government and certain things that they're doing in their country, which could be considered crimes against humanity. And their minister, I think it was an ambassador, said, well, you can't believe the fake news, even though this certain, you know, body came in and investigated. There's leaks happening. And that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Good. Who wants to go next? Okay. Come on. You said.
I'm very curious about fake news.
Right. I mean, it's a.
In China, they get caught with a gun and they say it's still fake news.
Right.
I was just thinking.
That's what you can say now. If you don't like something about you, you can say it's fake news. Which was a trick the Russians used to use too. They would say, "Oh, that's, you know, American rock."
Yes. Comrade.
Right. Exactly.
All right.
All right, so I'm talking about women in cybersecurity, but not sort of like completely broadly, more in the question of how many, you know, what percentage of women are in cybersecurity. Because when I first started taking these classes a couple years ago, the number that was floating around was 11%. About cybersecurity workforce, 11% women. That seems low to me. I mean, I know it's low. I know it's, you know, fairly low, but 11% did seem low. But that was the number that was floating around since 2013 to just about last year. And then last year, ISC Squared puts out another one that's another report, cybersecurity workforce report, that says, oh, it's actually 24%, which is pretty much the same as the percentage of women in the overall tech workforce, computer science, information management, information science. And it turns out it's not because anything actually changed. They changed the methodology, which I think was primarily looking at a broader spectrum of cybersecurity jobs, including jobs that weren't 100% cybersecurity, but if you were working at least if you're spending at least 25% of your time on security-related issues, they counted you in. So then, hey, voila, we're the same as pretty much, you know, women are the same percentage in the cybersecurity workforce as the overall tech workforce, which is still low. It's still 25%, which is a huge issue because everybody knows there's a huge cybersecurity workforce gap. There just aren't enough workers. Maybe some of the numbers are around 300,000 jobs going begging, you know, in just in North America, or just in the U.S., maybe 450,000 in North America. So they do, you know, we need all we can get. So if we are keeping some people out for some reason, you know, what are those reasons and what can we do about it? Even though it isn't really different from the general tech workforce. So this refers back to what was going on with the pipeline and the regular tech workforce, or the general tech workforce, which is, you know, back in 83, 84, 37% of women were graduating with degrees in computer science, and that dropped to 17% by 2010. That's really a precipitous drop. What was going on? Well, they associate that with personal computers coming into the home, boys getting a lot of support in learning to use them, working with their dads. Girls weren't getting that same kind of support. So they got to college, girls didn't know how to code, they never really dealt with a computer before, boys were already pretty experienced coders. That was an incredibly intimidating environment for girls, or for young women, college freshmen. And so they tended to drop out, even if they were actually doing perfectly well in the classes. Even some of the top performers ended up dropping out because they felt like they didn't belong there. So the Carnegie Mellon actually made a real effort to address that. Oh, and this is, guess what? Cybersecurity isn't any different. Our pipeline is just as bad. 2017, 2018, PICO CTF winner. So that's high school, targeted high school. So pipeline problem, still there, or still in here as with other issues, in other parts of tech. So Carnegie Mellon decided to address the pipeline issues, and they made some very specific moves. They put in separate tracks for students with coding experience and for those who are new to coding, offered tutoring across the board, changed their admissions process, because the faculty also realized that even though the boys started out faster, they knew more going in, and they started out really fast, the girls caught up. By year 3, the girls were doing just as well. So there are some things that have been proven to work, at least in increasing the computer science percentage among women in the college area. What people really haven't figured out is what to do about industry culture. There's some efforts in that direction, but I think that's a much harder nut to crack. It's just really hard to get at these issues because they're so ingrained in the industry, and you don't have like a group of professors who are sitting around thinking about these things and really worried about diversity. You have people who are focused on the business at hand and are trying to get their work done, and this is a very secondary issue for them. And so that's an issue that I think is still out there and is still big, and we don't know how to address. But pipeline, we should still be doing more about. I'm in this cohort, the Cyber Fast Track cohort from SANS, completely free. I'm getting a scholarship to, it's like the undergraduate certificate, which is for SANS courses, completely free. I just did it by starting CTF, but guess who mostly does CTFs? We looked at the PICO CTF pictures before. The cohort ends up being 75% males, 25% women. So still the same percentage carrying all the way through. But I encourage you all, look this up. It was fun. It was a cool CTF, and then you had to do a class, like an online class. And then they picked 100 people and free.
Which CTF is that?
It was, the whole thing was through Cyber Fast Track,
Oh, okay.
which is a SANS, but I think the California government has part to do with this. So it's different state governments have kind of pitched in again to try to attack the workforce gap generally. And it was, so they picked 100 people, a bunch from California, a bunch from like Michigan and other states, but it's free.
Yeah. In the last couple of years, I've seen a ton of women in cybersecurity groups appear, and
Yes,
it looks
there
like
are a lot of
things are changing
efforts.
fast.
I think at the pipeline level, people are doing a lot now, which is great. She's T30, which I never say. That's the one.
Yeah, she was there.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So, Alex, I guess you're next this way, then we'll do YK on the other device. Good. Good.
Sorry, I have to lower the privileges of my security. But I wasn't trying to
Share the screen.
Yeah, now I am.
Zoom on later.
There we go.
Okay, good.
Sorry about that.
So, oh, you're not in the Zoom. Oh, okay.
No, I'm back in the Zoom. I had to quit. Sorry, guys.
It's all right. Let's see what happens.
There we go.
Something on there. Hopefully. That's
Share. Desktop. Share.
That looks like it's going to work. Yeah, it is working.
Right. Ah,
Okay.
Hi, I'm Alex Jacobo. Hey guys. Oh wait. Hey, sorry guys, if you're online, can you hear me?
Yeah, it picks you up
There you go.
for a distance.
Hey guys. So my presentation is about security risk from cheating in academia. So basically, how students are using technology to cheat at the school university level, and thereby creating risk in college networks. So the problem is that, you know, technology has evolved way faster than a lot of school policies and college policies on the board. Students are learning super fast about technology and on their own time, and it's because it's becoming a very popular tool and so, you know, and social circles between each other, and technology has become a very ingrained part of our lives. A lot of teachers don't have the resources or training to detect academic dishonesty with technology because there's no time for that really, and a lot of teachers are very underpaid, and a lot of students are just looking for shortcuts. So less school is more hours at their work or job or whatever side hustles they got going on. So that's understandable, but still it's very there's a big impact in the end. So the types of ways students cheat is social engineering by, you know, tricking the school administrators or the school teachers just by hacking their grades up. Smartphones, that's how you get the apps in order to do your cheating. Websites, there's a lot of websites out there that can help you with that. Social media accounts. There's actually social media accounts where you can actually get grades. So you have to be invited into those accounts, and also Facebook groups. there's also a lot of Facebook groups for cheating. So if you're part of that university, you can get either you have to be invited into those groups in order to get those kind of grades and also the tests and whatever's being used. 35% of teenagers admit that they cheat on their homework and test. 65% of them stated that they've seen others cheat, and 40% claim that they've seen other people cheat using technology, and 21% of them admit that they actually did it at some point. A lot of students are defining rules when it comes to cybersecurity restrictions. A lot of students are finding ways to hack into networks because a lot of school networks are very weak, and IT administrators don't have the kind of budget to secure their college networks or their school networks. 24% of students actually are able to hack into the networks of their school.
1 minute.
What's that? Oh, 1 minute. Oh, yeah. And yeah, so there's a lot of, 45% of students can access any kind of data. And actually, the funny part is 80% of the students that are aware about this, they actually want the schools to protect them more from these cyber threats. And there's your typical, having your notes in your app and texting each other using your iWatch. I'm not telling you how to cheat, but I'm telling you what's out there. There's actually templates you can download for your water bottle, so you can just put on there. It looks like a nutrition label. Let's see, there's math apps that can do your own problems with the work. There's websites that offer to do the same. And the direct impact is malicious programs going into your network and just going haywire, messing up your network. Unreliable apps or unknown apps that have malicious code inside. And your risk, you're high at risk if you go onto those networks, because there's been accounts where your finances get hacked into, your bank accounts on your apps, checking account money being withdrawn. That's happened before. Same hacking or SIM swapping, and criminal.
Yeah. But I just wonder, do you actually know that cheating led to people getting their money stolen? Is there a real connection there?
Yeah, it's called stupidity.
Well, yeah, just
But yeah, in the future there'll be AIs, and it's gonna be there's gonna be a huge market for that. And don't cheat; you're only hurting yourself and others. Don't break the cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. All right. All right, you got yours on this thing. So let's move this video. All right. Here. All right. Oh, I can record this one with the camera, actually. Let's figure out how to do that. Start video. There. And there should be a way to make it big. Should be able to make it even bigger. Maybe I'm not able to make it bigger. All right. I think I'm still seeing somebody else's desktop.
I already.
Oh, there. Oh, this is work. Okay. Yeah, that's reversed. All right, I'm just going to stop the recording. This one's not going to record very well. Let me just stop the recording.